The Lord.
Good evening. It's lovely to have been sharing with you again here in the Novena this evening. But this is my third sermon of the evening, so forgive me if I've slowed down a bit. I do want to begin with quite a shocking story. A story told by the writer Philip Yancey in a couple of his books, but which originated with a friend of his in Chicago who worked with the down and outs there. And he tells how a prostitute came to him at one point in absolutely wretched straits, homeless, sick, unable to buy food for her 2-year-old daughter. And through sobs and tears, she told him how she had been renting out her daughter of 2 years old to paedophiles. She made far more for her daughter for an hour than she could earn on her own in a night. She had to do it, she said, to support her own drug habit. It was a sickening story, and one with legal ramifications. The person she was talking to rightly had a legal obligation to report such dreadful abuse. He was understandably at a loss with what to say to the woman. So he asked, had she gone to anyone else for help? Like a church, for example. And with a look of pure, unadulterated shock on her face, she cried, "Church? Why would I ever go there? I already feel terrible about myself. They'd just make me feel worse." If ever there was someone who fitted Pope Francis' description of those who have made a shipwreck of their lives, it was that woman. But sadly, she did not see the church as a place of refuge or potential rescue, but rather a place that offered only condemnation. The story we read from Luke's Gospel this evening couldn't be more different. Here we find a woman with a certain reputation as a sinner. We don't actually know what sort of sinner she was, but the sense is implied. In the way that women have tended to be judged for their sexual behaviour in a way that men rarely are, right down to the present day. I mean, even over the past fortnight, in that sordid soap opera around the sex life of President Trump, his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, suggested that Stormy Daniels' testimony should not be given the same credibility as the president because she was a porn star. That her lack of respectability reflected on her credibility. We are all sinners. But the respectable men around the table in that gospel story knew that that woman was a sinner. Although I always wonder how these men knew that. Was it so obvious? Or did they know her for other reasons? But anyway, there was something about Jesus that this woman was willing to risk the hostility of the Pharisee host to come into his house and anoint the feet of Christ. Now, either this is a radically different take on the story that John and Matthew tell about Mary in Bethany, or else this sort of thing happened with Jesus on more than one occasion. That there was something about Jesus that made women want to anoint his head or feet with perfume, even though it meant putting up with the sneers and hostile comments of those that Jesus had about him. Be it the comments in this story about this woman's morality, or the comments of Judas and others about Mary's financial profligacy. Jesus attracted those who were rejected and marginalized by the established religious elite of his day. Those for whom circumstances had conspired to condemn them to a life of isolation and loneliness, or those who had made wrong decisions according to the law, leaving them looked down upon by others. They saw in Jesus someone who looked on them with compassion and who could make a difference to their lives. Yet there are times when it seems as if the crowd of contemporary Pharisees and penny-pinching disciples around Jesus in the present day is so thick that women like this and others that the righteous looked down on couldn't find their way to Jesus if they tried. It's interesting that this event takes place in the house of Simon the Pharisee. I mean, why would a Pharisee want to invite Jesus to dinner, given the fact that he and the Pharisees seem to butt heads throughout the Gospels? Was this Pharisee trying to domesticate, civilize this upcountry rabbi? Or was he treating him like some sort of celebrity preacher for his neighbours to come in and gawk at? That was frequently the experience of John Wesley, the founder of Methodism. He was invited all the time to dinner by the titled and the wealthy because he was newsworthy. But he rarely found that his fellow dinner guests were really interested in what he had to say, particularly when it pertained to either to their eternal destinies or their duties to the poor. Yet, do we seek to domesticate Christ? Invite him into our homes, our churches, our lives, on the understanding that he won't upset things too much, that he will toe the religious line and not attract too many of the riff-raff in along with him who tend to make the place look untidy. Do we want to hear Jesus join us in condemning those who are on our particular list of sinners? Be they prostitutes or addicts, members of the LGBTQ community, those who have had abortions for one reason or another, or who have committed murderous acts in the poisonous past of our wee province. Is our house, our table, our heart strangely less open than that of a Pharisee? The very fact that this sinful woman could access this dinner table at all was a feature of Middle Eastern households at the time of Jesus. But the truth then and now is that a house and a heart that is open to Jesus should be open to others. But it depends on who the Jesus is that we follow. Would the Jesus that we follow be more at home with Simon the Pharisee or this sinful woman? particularly when it comes to the issue of forgiveness. For the Pharisees and Sadducees of Jesus' day and their equivalent today, sin and forgiveness is clear-cut. The way to avoid sin is to live by the rules. But when those rules are transgressed, there's a penalty to pay before forgiveness is even on the table. But Jesus didn't play by those rules. For him, forgiveness was the starting point, not the destination. It was freely offered to all. Whatever kind of sinner we are, be it an obvious one like the woman or the self-righteous ones like Simon. The thing is, what do we do in response to that offer of forgiveness? Accept it gratefully and out of the reservoir of God's grace within us by the Holy Spirit, offer it generously to others, like a certain prayer that Jesus taught us implies? Or will we reject the implication that we have anything that we need to be forgiven for in the first place and stand in self-righteous condemnation of all those others who clearly do? It is the recognition that we all need Christ's forgiveness that is the first step in restoring the reputation of the church as a place of radical hospitality and healing, rather than a place and a people that makes others feel worse about themselves. And perhaps before that happens, we need to take seriously the last line of the reading, where Jesus says, "Your faith has healed you. Go in peace." Go. Rather than sit here and expect the rejected and the marginalized to come into a place that many with some justification perceive to be as inhospitable as the house of Simon the Pharisee. Instead, as forgiven, saved sinners, we need to hear Jesus' benediction afresh. Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Instead of expecting others to come, we first need to go in peace as channels of his peace. Amen.
So thank you, Reverend David, for your presence with us this evening, for your challenging message to all of us to be that radical hospitality of Jesus, both as individuals, as a church, and here in Clonard at our novena. So just a couple of notices. We encourage you to visit the novena shop where you can get mass cards, candles, prayer cards, and more. To help clear the stock there, the shop are offering a special. This is a candle, a key ring, and a book on Clonard Church for £5. So keep that in mind. You have a few more days, but they're trying to clear that, so the sooner you get it, the better probably. And also tomorrow marks the Triduum, the final 3 days of the novena. So it's a special kind of 3 days, and we encourage everyone to maybe invite anyone from friends or family who haven't been here to come and join us for the final 3 days beginning tomorrow. So I'll just share a few of the petitions that have been coming in. Dear Mother of Perpetual Help, I come to ask the help of your divine Son. Please pray to him for my husband, who is in prison